So hello everyone and welcome to this year's Researching the Rainbow panel. My name is Alex and I am, my pronouns are he, they, and I am this year's Researching the Rainbow lead at National Student Pride. The Researching the Rainbow scheme offers the chance for someone doing LGBTQIA+ research to get support from National Student Pride with their research, whether that be current or past research. This year, a panel of what was supposed to be 3 academics, but unfortunately one is ill today and cannot be with us. But the 2 academics we have here today will decide the winner of Researching the Rainbow for this year. And the academics will come up and introduce themselves in a minute. As a group, we shortlisted the entries down to 8 researchers based on a 200-word extract they submitted about their research, and today we will hear from 4 of them. The shortlisted have been asked to prepare a poster to go alongside a presentation, which will last around 4 minutes, that they will give about their research topic. And we've asked them to focus their presentation on who they are, what they're researching, why they're researching that topic, what impact they're expecting, and a challenge they might require support for. After each presentation, the panel will ask a few questions and give their initial comments. After hearing the presentations, the panel will decide on who the winner of Researching the Rainbow 2024 is. Now, the 2 academics will introduce themselves quickly.
Hi, thank you, Alex. So I'm the first one. I'm Divyesh Anand. My preferred pronouns are he and him. I'm from University of Westminster, and I have the privilege of chairing this group. And I was involved in NSP last year, but I think the first time we're doing this at NSP. So we have a format, but we want to start by saying that everyone is a winner. So yes, we have to choose a winner, but all of you are winner, and we'll find ways in which we support you. So please, in that sense, relax about it. I'm a very competitive person, so I would not have relaxed if there's any competition, but we wanted to say you all are winners. We looked at the abstract, we actually felt, wow, can we accommodate all of them? Then it wasn't feasible. Then we tried to look at technicality where we could exclude certain people who couldn't come at certain points. But what we wanted to say is that overall the submission we had and also from you, we are quite happy to do it. And I will just also highlight the reason it's good to have this is because rainbows are difficult to research. And it's so exciting, and research is difficult to do. When I'm myself a queer person, elderly compared to most of you, what I would say, I wish there was this kind of thing when I was younger. My life would have been very different, for better. So I just wanted to say that. And something else, and one final thing I would also say that broadly in LGBTQ circles, what I have believed in my own experience is that it's important to be there for each other. We may have differences. There'll always be differences. That's the problem. But differences should not be divisiveness and divisions. And what we need is, of course, to be there for each other. Something else I say to everyone, because I'm also a deputy vice chancellor of our university, always I don't have time, but I always say that if, particularly in this case, LGBTQ researchers or students need help, I will take time out somehow. So giving myself, that's a brief introduction to myself. I'm a professor of international relations. That's my technical background, please.
Thank you, Divyesh. Thank you, Alex. So my name is Dr. Barbara Chinyani Herring from the Royal Holloway University of London. Very passionate about everything LGBTQ. My pronouns are she, her. I'm an ally, a strong ally when it comes to that. My main interest, research interests and personal life really has all been about inequalities and discrimination. So very passionate about any kind of discrimination and inequality. And that's why I find myself in this space and wanting to support the heck out of anything that goes against inequalities and discrimination. So I'm within the Department of Health Studies at the Royal Holloway University of London, where I'm course leading a brand new course in health studies, which is an sweet spot between human health and environmental health. So everything about that moral and ethical responsibility that we need to have. But particularly interested in the research that the abstract certainly that we read, in the sense that it's touching on those areas that have been a sore point that people are afraid to come up and research. So thoroughly excited and privileged, absolutely privileged to read what you've got to offer. And as Divya said, you are all winners. And I would encourage you, whatever you have started writing on, to continue and pursue that. What I'm hoping will come out of today is a community of practice and support that will start from today, literally. So all that research that you have done, we hope that with our networks and our connections, we'll be able to create a community of practice that will take these matters forward and hopefully impact policy and practice. So thank you very much for allowing us and giving us the privilege to be a panel and experience what you are looking for. So well done, everyone, and all the best. Thank you. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much for that. So now we welcome our first researcher, Grace Cappy. I apologise, I couldn't get your poster.
Oh, it's really, it's
But
okay.
I can scroll down.
If you could scroll down in a moment, I'll give you a little nod.
Wait.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Okay. Hi, my name's Grace Cappy. My pronouns are she, they. I'm a part-time PhD student at Coventry University in my 6th and hopefully final year. I've been working in students' unions for the last 10 years and working with student leaders to help them achieve change on campus and beyond. So what am I researching? My research is titled, How does the campus climate for LGBT inclusion influence the success of LGBTQ+ undergraduate students in higher education? I know that rolls off the tongue. And this research is in partnership with 8 other students' unions and has been developed in collaboration with a student research group to centre the research and outcomes on the community of focus. Although widely known in North America, the term campus climate is not a concept used in the UK, apart from in limited scholarship. Using minority stress theory and Aston's input environment output model, we understand the impact of positive and affirming HE environments for LGBTQ+ students. Such environments can positively impact students' mental health and persistence, and conversely, we understand the detrimental impacts that negative environments can have. So using a mixed methods approach with a multi-phase design and a social justice lens, I undertook a campus climate survey, the semi-structured interviews with undergraduate LGBTQ+ students and student leaders. Scroll down a little bit for me. What do the findings show so far? Through the survey analysis, LGBTQ+ participants had chillier or more negative perceptions across all campus climate factors, and trans students had chillier perceptions of their safety overall. There are positive correlations between warmer campus climate perceptions and success outputs for LGBTQ+ and non-LGBTQ+ participants. The strongest correlation for LGBTQ+ participants was found between collective attitudes, so how you are perceived and treated by other people, and sense of belonging. Through interviews, participants associated success with their ability to be their authentic selves in academic and social spaces, and having the brain space to focus on their studies rather than being self-conscious and fearful. When participants could safely share and reflect on their lived experience within the curriculum and classroom, they felt more engaged and had a greater sense of belonging to their course. LGBTQ+ students rely on informal support mechanisms and building good relationships with staff allies, friends and groups. And LGBTQ+ groups and societies are doing significant work to challenge cis heteronormativity on campus and make campuses safe, but with little support. These groups, however, are not always a safe space for all LGBTQ+ students. So why am I researching this topic? This research was born out of a small research project I undertook with our LGBTQ+ society, and we realised we were just scratching the surface in terms of our understanding of our student communities. There's a lot of research out there that tells us that LGBT students are still experiencing discrimination and barriers at university, but they're also formative spaces where students for the first time get the opportunity to be their true selves. However, we know very little about how these experiences, both positive and negative, actually impact the success of LGBTQ+ students. So what am I hoping the impacts will be with this research? As I said, I partnered with 8 SUs, and this is offered as a resource to students' unions to help them progress conversations with their universities about the greater need for LGBTQ+ specific resources and support for their student communities. After discussion with the Office for Students, I hope that this will add to the scholarship that influences the Equality of Opportunity Risk Register to encourage universities to invest in LGBTQ+ inclusion for the benefit of all students. Thank you very much.
Sure. Again, thank you so much. Again, I wish we had more time that we could have found more details. But in terms of what challenge have you experienced while doing this research? Could you give 1 or 2 examples, and how did you overcome?
Yes, okay. First of all, I'm part-time, so doing this alongside work, that's very much in the same environment, alongside working with students, that kind of insider-outsider, being part of the community, working with the community has been kind of quite a challenge to be able to draw boundaries, both for myself and for students, but has also been really rewarding in that sense. So I've been working directly with a student research group that I mentioned. Research was carried out during COVID, so in terms of engagement, that was also a challenge. So I was working with these students' unions to push the message out about the survey that I was doing, and obviously they had very important focuses on trying to ensure the safety and well-being of their students. So trying to find the balance between doing this research and respecting the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So yeah, those are huge challenges.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Grace. What I wanted to find out is, with where you are and the years that you've put in, what support can we provide, or what support do you need to carry this to the finishing line?
I think the main thing is actually trying to find how to have the best impact with this piece of research. So for me, I have been speaking to the Office for Students that are a big part of kind of the way in which universities operate to become more inclusive. And there's been such a change politically and in staff members that actually it's really hard over a 6-year period to have been able to make significant kind of change and build that momentum. So I think what I'd be looking for is kind of any support in helping to build those networks to actually kind of have more influence.
Any question from the audience?
Yeah, sorry. Did you, when you went in and started the research, did you have any biases that then you sort of discovered that they were maybe not true, or maybe some biases that they were also affirmed through your research?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and absolutely, biases. I'm sure there are many. The one that I can sort of really think about is around mental health. So when I started this piece of research, and this was my own perception, I was like, I don't want to focus in on mental health because I don't want to be constantly thinking of this in a negative frame, that there's sort of mental health challenges as such. And actually, it's all of this. It's all that it is actually about. It's such an important part of it. And that was my kind of own stigma around not wanting to kind of put this deficit lens on the community, and me kind of perceiving, looking at mental health as being that, me connecting those two together. But that was definitely my own bias there around that, and I very much learned a huge amount in the process of going, actually it's the most important thing, and it needs to be addressed through this.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Sorry, can I just one question?
Now, sorry, we haven't got time for
You may get time later, so
Yeah.
keep that question for later.
Yeah. Research. Are you ready?
Wonderful. So hello, I'm Rebecca, and I'm a first-year PhD student within Gender and Sexuality Studies at the University of Birmingham. My research focuses on asexuality, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a sexual orientation that refers to people who don't experience sexual attraction or only experience sexual attraction rarely. Within my research, I look at how asexuality has been represented on British television and I'm starting to look at how representations, or quite often the lack of representations, can impact asexual communities. Now, I'm asexual myself, and I came into this research really out of curiosity of how asexuality had been represented on television as, a sexual mutation which has historically been invisible. So as such, I've been very interested in the ways that asexuality emerged on screen, and going back to retrace representations of asexuality that have been lost from asexual and queer histories, and this is particularly across the last 20 years. Today, because I'm my first year PhD student, I'm just going to talk about mainly some of my findings from my master's research, and then set out a few of my hopes and aims for my PhD. So from looking at the 4 fictional TV shows, British fictional TV shows, where characters self-identify as asexual on screen, which is Doctors, Emmerdale, Sex Education and Heartstopper, I found that firstly, asexuality is almost exclusively represented as a white, cisgender and teenaged identity, which quite obviously severely misrepresents and limits real-life asexual experiences. Narratives where you've got asexuals of colour, asexuals over the age of 30, disabled asexuals, trans and non-binary asexuals, and so many other intersectional asexual experiences are missing from British TV screens, and that is a problem. Secondly, not only are there not many asexual representations, but the narratives given to asexual characters are typically very short, either a single episode or just minutes of screen time, which again doesn't allow for meaningful or diverse understandings of asexuality to be shown on screen. Additionally, asexual narratives are often framed from the point of view of a non-asexual person struggling to understand that asexuality can exist, which, has repeatedly allowed for quite discriminatory discussions of asexuality to take place on screen, which again really isn't ideal. I don't want to particularly frame my research as saying really groundbreaking. Similar representational problems have been seen across LGBTQIA media and other minority media throughout history. But nonetheless, these representations and recognising the limitations of these representations, it's important to recognise this in trying to change what the future of asexual representations could look like. We need authentic and diverse representations to give visibility to asexual communities, as well as to stand against discrimination, conversion therapy and pathologization that we currently experience. Now, my hope going forward into the early-ish stages of my PhD will be to speak to other asexuals about their experiences with the media and asexual representations. Whilst it is generally understood that underrepresentation and misrepresentations of queer communities can and has negatively impacted our communities, research has not yet explored the impact this lack of representation and poor representation, if I may say, has had on asexual communities. I really hope to use my research to shed a light on the impacts of these representations and use asexual voices specifically to help me tell our community story. The challenge, however, in my research is getting the people with the power to change representations in the future to listen, to allow for authentic and diverse representations of asexuality to be made. And this isn't just for the sake of having asexual representations, but for widening understandings of asexuality more generally in society, as well as really opening up possibilities of what it can be, what it can mean to be queer in society. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Very interesting work, and we know that first years, of course, you would be relying upon your existing research and also research questions. So a simple thing for you would be, for me, is given that there's hardly any representation and then there's misrepresentation, but hardly representation, and you said a few times that you want to speak to other asexuals, you want to let the voice be there. How would you prevent the challenge of burden of representation? Means that there are very few, and therefore their voices would be heard, but there might be many you would not know, others would not know. So I'm just wondering to what extent you would deal with the challenge of very small numbers
Mhm.
who are visible, because you want to give voice, but
Yes.
many might not have voice, or many might not be visible, and therefore, how would you reach out and make sure that the voices you have
Mhm.
are actually representative even of the diversity within the asexual?
It is a very important question, and one that I am constantly trying to battle with. I am aware of, and I'm in many different asexual networks, and really hope to be able to use them effectively to make sure there is a diversity of asexuals represented in my research. If that means, I've got to go to every LGBTQ centre in the country and leave a flyer for my questionnaires or interviews, I will do it. Whatever is necessary to get the diversity of asexual voices I need in my research. The difficulty I also feel that within the asexual community, it is a very white community. It's got its own problems and histories, which sadly I do not have time to really acknowledge in depth now. But it's something I'm having conversations with my supervisors of how can we get the full diversity of asexuals represented in my research, especially the asexuals who aren't being represented on screen and are not visible in those ways, and really trying to focus and bring to the forefront the impact of the lack of representation for asexuals who aren't being represented, because that is its own problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, for that. You're very early on in your research. Wanted to find out more about the methods that you intend to apply for this research.
Yeah.
How are you going to be approaching this? What's your methodology?
Absolutely. So I'm just about to put in my ethical review application, which is exciting and daunting and hopeful. So my initial plan is to do a 2-phase research project. So firstly, send out questionnaires to as many asexual people as I can to try and just get a real understanding of, firstly, statistical data about how different media impacts asexual communities and how that might change depending on different demographic groups within the asexual community. And then really get a sense of what asexual representations are important to the community. I know in this it's spoken about self-identified asexual characters, but there is so much more to asexual representation than that. And I really hope to use the questionnaire to really identify what is important in asexual communities. It might be confirmed characters, it might be, unconfirmed characters like Sherlock Holmes or the Doctor, or characters I don't even know of, which is really exciting to hear. After that, I'm hoping to interview as many asexuals as I can within probably my own funding constraints, and try and get a very diverse and demographically, like a representative group, I guess, of asexuals to really be able to discuss the impacts asexual representation is having on them in more depth, and hopefully use it to somehow make change.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
Unfortunately, due to timings, we don't have time for audience questions, unfortunately. So thank you very much for your presentation. We will now hear from Lauren. Whenever you're ready to start, go for it.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lauren. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from the University of Warwick. I am a PhD student. So my research focused on the relationship between self-acceptance, resilience, as predictors of psychological well-being in an LGBTQIA+ population. I'm using mixed methods approach. So the reason for pursuing this research was kind of the negative consequences around the community with like a lack of self-acceptance, resilience, and psychological well-being. So you got the increase in like self-harm, suicide rates, and things like that. So, and a lot of these are around kind of the low rates of self-acceptance, psychological well-being, and resilience. So, our aim was to look to see if resilience and self-acceptance would be predictors of psychological well-being. So we did a mixed methods study. We had 5 participants to come for interviews, and we had I think we had 240 participants originally, but due to incomplete responses, it was down to 160 participants for like an online questionnaire using 3 measures: the self-acceptance scale, the brief resilience scale, and the psychological wellbeing scale. And what we found was through a multiple regression, we found that self-acceptance and resilience were both predictors of psychological wellbeing, and this had the most impact when they were both combined. So they were both significant individually, but when combined, they had the biggest impact. And as for the qualitative side of it, so we did interviews, and as you can see on the screen, these are some quotes from the interviews that we had, and we did a thematic analysis on those and narrowed it down to 4 common themes, which was the paradox of support. I might get a wife, how crazy is that? I think that's just that. Internal factors and personal experiences. So the most interesting one was the paradox of support, because we found what kind of helps with resilience really hinders self-acceptance, so such as friends and family. So when you have a lot of our participants found that you had to have the kind of help and support from your friends and family to increase your resilience, but on the same time, if your friends and family were not accepting, it can create obviously low levels of self-acceptance, which led to a really interesting paradox of support, which was the name that we gave the theme. So overall, I don't have time to go into all of the themes, but that was the most interesting finding. So when we combined these results together, we really found kind of what factors played into the role of self-acceptance and resilience, which showed from our quantitative analysis predicted psychological well-being. So yeah, overall we found that the minority stressors in the LGBTQIA+ community played a massive role, pulling on from the minority stress model. Overall causing a lack of self-acceptance, resilience and psychological well-being, which then again led to the negative consequences of poor mental health, increase in self-harm and increase in suicide rates. So coming on from this now, the paper has been written, it's just in the process of being back and forward to my supervisor for like edits, etc. So the next stage is to hopefully, we're looking at getting this published and then kind of seeing what the impacts from this can be. I think the kind of implications of this research could be leading to kind of like an increasing kind of education and awareness for allies, families and things like that, to see how they can support their, you know, friends and loved ones who are part of the LGBTQIA+ community, to help increase their kind of resilience and self-acceptance, which in turn can hopefully lead to an increase in psychological well-being for them. And thank you.
Thank you so much. A great, important topic and a good presentation. Why did you choose this topic?
So we were kind of looking at kind of different areas to go for, and when I was kind of doing like a scoping search, like a background review, it seemed like everything that was coming up was like the negative effects of being in the LGBTQIA+ community. And yeah, a lot of that kind of when I was going through the literature was kind of relating to kind of self-acceptance, resilience, psychological well-being, but kind of as a 3 hadn't been looked at yet. So we looked at that, looked at the previous literature, and that's how we predicted that they would hopefully predict psychological well-being, because if we found that they predicted it, which we did, we can hopefully try and do something about it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Wanted to find out what the challenges have been. Well, you've finished that and you're publishing it. What support, what do you need support with to move this forward? Because you're talking about this could be the impact, one of the impacts you've mentioned is support for allies and getting them to understand what people might be experiencing. So what would you need? What support would you need?
Yes, I think at the moment it's kind of figuring out and kind of the impact. So my research also focuses on neurodiversity, and I'm currently involved with institutional and cross-disciplinary research in neurodiversity training for staff and students. So doing something maybe similar for kind of LGBTQIA+ for allies to see how they could support them, I think would be really beneficial. I think it would be more beneficial at kind of like a secondary education level, because I think that can be where I think obviously teenagers and adolescents can be highly influential, and that's where kind of a lot between the ages of like 14 and like early 20s, a lot of the mental health issues, self-harm, suicide rates could be are at its highest. So, but at the moment, I think it's higher education would probably be an easier population to target to start with, and then eventually moving into kind of secondary education.
Thank you so much. Now welcome our last researcher to the stage, Lonsi. How do I pronounce that?
Lonsini.
Lonsini.
Yes,
And
Lonsini.
would like to come down.
Hi everyone, hi. Yeah, my name is Lonsini Kurwa, and I'm a third year PhD student at Westminster. And my pronoun is he and she. I consider myself these days as a two-spirited person. And yeah, my research is examining the lived experiences of Black doctoral researchers in the UK within a decolonizing lens. And it was very important to me to use decoloniality to understand the subjectivity, to understand the colonial subjectivity of our Blackness, and to use decoloniality to find a way to reimagine our lived experiences. And the reason why I'm using our, because I'm part of my research, I'm also a Black doctoral student, right? And why this topic? This topic was to tell our stories through our own voices and within our own context, in a way we understand and define our lived experiences. The research was first inspired by my becoming Black. And what I mean by that, I was born in Guinea, and from when I was born, the concept of being Black did not exist because everybody just looked like me. I was a son, I was a sibling, I was a grandchild, I was a friend. You know, it's when I came to the UK, I became Black, and that was a shock to the system. And mind you, I came in the UK thinking that I could finally try to explore this part of me that I used to hate for so long. I literally used education to perform masculinity. So people, you know, and that worked for me. So I came in the UK very excited to finally be the gay person that I was. And I had this Blackness just came right in my face. You know, then you become Black. You realize that everything else you are doesn't matter. The first thing the society sees is Black. And then I had to understand what that meant. It meant as a Black man, I was hyper visible, hyper sexualized, hyper criminalized. I was hyper surveyed, and I was aggressive. And not only that, I wasn't intelligent. Mind you, I've given my whole entire childhood to be good at school, but this society saw me as not being intelligent. You know, and that was the first thing that inspired the research. The second thing also varies. The Black doctoral research within the context of the UK is very underrepresented. You could, when you look at the study usually is about Black undergrad students. There is no law study. That's why when I was writing my tutor review, I had to read things about, I had to live experiences of Black doctoral students in America and in South Africa, and find a little studies that I found here, do a comparative analysis to sort of paint a bigger picture of what exactly it is we go through. So what this research is trying to do is try to understand and highlight the intricacies and the intersectionalities that exist within our racialized experiences. What I mean by that in a nutshell is what it actually means to be both Black and a researcher, right? And and when it comes to the LGBT, what this research does, I'm a queer person. I represent the rainbow community in research. But not only that, when I was doing my data collection, it was very important for me because very often when you read about Black student within the context of higher education, they tend to talk about the experiences of Black heterosexual students, men or women, and there's not enough said about us, So I made sure my the third participant were from the LGBT group, and I interviewed Black gay researchers, I interviewed lesbians, I interviewed non-binaries, I interviewed two or three trans to kind of not to try, like I did not to homogenize our lived experiences into this one single story. And and I think what also makes this research important is who's doing the research. As I said earlier, I'm Black, I'm gay, I'm an immigrant, I am a feminist. So that gives a unique lens for me to be able to do this research. And and I made sure I will make sure I take things in count that maybe your if research was done by somebody else, they won't take that in count. And the fact that I made sure my own community is represented in my research and I'm represented in my research, and to help me weave the tapestry of our story. And I'm saying again, because my story is within my own research as well. And how I did this, I used storytelling as my methodology. I asked my participant to bring me a picture that best represents the lived experiences as Black doctoral students. And I did a working interview also with them, right? And what that does, it was to equalize the power dynamics between me and them, them to think like I'm them. So they gave me the story while we're working, and they gave me a picture of what I represent. And that's why I said that I'm trying to create a big tapestry of our stories through the pictures they gave me. And I'm also using a loom analysis, which is a weaving technique. I don't know if anybody knows about loom. Loom, it used to be this ancient thing wood that we used to use to weave material. So I'm using that technique, and that technique is very ancestral to me. And I'm from the west coast of Africa. Usually our education system was done through storytelling. My grandma was a storyteller. So I'm using that weaving technique to take the account of all my participants to weave the tapestry of our story. And why I think this research needs support. It needs support because, as I said, we are very underrepresented. There's not enough said when it comes to Black doctoral students. So it's to have opportunity to expose my work into the right platform and have the right people to do it. To also realize that that there's a difference between just being Black. There's layers of intersectionalities or layers of inequalities that exist when you have different identities that you have to navigate. Yeah, and thank you very much for having me.
Excellent presentation and very important research. I have a simple question about your title, but the decolonizing lens.
Yes.
So could you say what is decolonizing in this?
Yes, decolonizing in this is in the context of what I'm doing, when I'm using decolonizing lens, I have to remember of my own subjectivity. I'm a colonial subject. I was colonized, right? My country colonized. So my thinking thought, I had to interrogate myself while I'm doing this work. I cannot repeat the logic of the system that oppressed my ancestors or myself, right? So using decoloniality in a way is finding new ways of understanding ourselves, right? Doing things in a different way, right? Or otherwise, I will repeat exactly the same stereotype, the same stories that are told by me. So that's why I'm not using decoloniality as a subject. I'm using the lens of decoloniality, being a decolonial subject myself, and reminding myself, and what I need to do justice, to give voices to our voice, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, if that makes sense, yeah.
Thank you very much. So my interest is more at the intersectionality of that. So thinking of the LGBTQ+, how are you going to make, because there's the aspect of you being Black and the other intersections, how are you going to pull those out? Because the intersections can be quite a lot.
Yeah.
So looking at the intersections that you have, how are you going to be able to pull those apart and analyze them, each aspect of them, because not everybody's going to have that specific makeup. How are you going to pull this apart in order to have a wider reach to anyone who's impacted with that?
That's a great question. Yes, exactly. And I think that's why I use methodologies that I use, because you ask people the same question to 25 participants, right? To bring a photo. And if like I said, the third one participant were for LGBT, they will all tell you the story differently. And through the pictures, you could literally see the intersectionality, things that they go through was expressed in the pictures. So while I'm weaving the stories, those intersectionality will show themselves. And it's my responsibility as a researcher to highlight those in a way that is understood. You know, if I don't take into account, I'm telling one story of the same thing, basically. So, and I don't know, yeah, if I could give an example, for example, when I spoke to a trans woman, she told me that I lived experience. She gave a picture of herself in the water, sort of drowning. She said, "I'm not waving, I am drowning." She said she gets up every morning, she goes to a PhD room, and everybody, they said, "Hi, you all right?" People are going while she finishes drowning, right? And if I'm able to put that against other people are telling me that their PhD experiences with, it's great. They love the supervisors, right? So you have to show it that way. And she explained to me what her sexuality has to do with that when people mispronounce her name, you know, the pronoun and stuff like that. So that gives her a feeling of charming. So I think as a researcher, that's why being Black, being also a researcher, and being part of her community, right? I give myself accountability to really tell her story the way it should be, if that makes sense. And that's just for the trans person. And it goes on, the gay person told me that. So you could clearly see the way stories were told and who told the story and why they experience, even though they're all Black, why their experience were different to the people. And it was based on the sexuality or the gender or, those issues they had. And I'm weaving the stories that way. I'm living as it is. I'm not adding my voice onto the voice. I'm telling the stories through their own voices. Yeah, if that makes sense, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much to all of our researchers. The academics will go away, take a few minutes.
We'll get up here,
Yeah.
have popcorn, and then
Take a few
come back when
minutes,
you
go
want to.
outside, they will have a talk, and we will decide the winner. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to our researchers. All your presentations were amazing. Just even to be shortlisted for it this year was amazing. We started off with 12 entries. I know that doesn't sound big, but obviously the caliber of all your entries, the time you've taken just to be able to do this. Thank you all so much. I know some of you have travelled very far, so thank you. But this year is my first year getting involved with National Student Pride and researching the rainbow. And it has just been such an amazing experience to meet all of to meet everyone today, and just to meet you, sort of the researchers here today, to see the effort you put into something like this is just amazing. And honestly, I cannot wait for next year to do it all again. Everyone can take a minute before they come back in. But obviously, big clap for everyone.
Thank you.
Are we all ready?
Yes, we're ready. How many minutes do we have? Because you could have time.
But we've overrun slightly already, so
Okay,
go
that's
for it.
fine. So what we should do is say the winner part is, of course, we have to choose the winner. They chose the winner, but we also wanted to say all four of you that we are there for you. So the winner actually doesn't. I know for winner it means a lot, but it doesn't really mean that you are excluded. It will be there for all four of you, and also the third, Georgina, who could not be here. They had offered that they are here for one-to-one connection with all of you. So that's one. We will announce that part. We'll reflect and we'll say our immediate view on the four, and then we'll conclude by again giving a broader reflection on not the four presentation, but where we can give advice on research and research, LGBTQ, PhD, everything. So we can do that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So basically we felt we were deciding, they're all very close, broadly speaking, but we felt that someone who would require support, and everyone has potential, everyone's doing it, but there's someone who would require support, visibility, and also the award would benefit them most quickly would have been basically Rebecca. And we felt that again, always fun, but we felt that this research is something that if given a platform, because it does require a platform because it's highly non-visible. That platform would help the research. That's the maximum difference can be made to that research rather than other research in terms of where you are and what you need. So that's the rationale for that. But you want to give a reflection on all four together, or?
So thank you very much again. And as Devesha said, we're thinking of what do we need to put forward, and we do think that, Rebecca, when it comes to the topic and your subject, there isn't enough and it's underrepresented to a point where this award will give you hopefully the leverage to start doing that. And if it's possible, Alex, I know there's something going on TV-wise and all that downstairs. If she would be allowed to say something immediately on the subject that she's talking about. And in terms of where you're looking, if you would be kind enough to let us know which, you mentioned doctors and a couple of other programs that are already looking into that. So in reflection, you might want to check, or if you don't have any connections, we can try and network you so that you can communicate with those particular people, because bringing those issues in the script already means there's some knowledge, but it's getting that news out and appreciating that and focusing on that a bit more. So we would like to support you with that and see how best we can get that movement going. So I'm from a different university, and I think it's necessary to do a little spiel or blog or a podcast on something, and we try and send it across to all the SUs that we know. So we would like to support you with that. And then Grace, really loved your research, and I think it's got a lot of legs on it. What would be interested to see is how that moves on. And I know student unions are doing a lot, universities say they're doing a lot when it comes to LGBTQ, but I think we need to find that sweet spot on what your research is doing that's different from what is happening. Because coming from that side of things, universities are more likely to say, well, we're doing something about it. We can't force everybody. And I don't know whether it's the same thing with your universities, but as student unions are not part of the universities, they're independent of universities. So there's only so much that independent aspect can do to the university. So maybe you might want to look at speaking to the networks within the universities that are LGBTQ networks and getting them on board, because there's always that frayed relationship with student union. Oh, they're coming at us for something new. So change the dynamics and let it come from the university itself, and you'll find a lot more support there. That's what we think. But again, we're willing and ready to have a powwow about it whenever, so that we can see what we can do to support you with that. Then we've got Blossoming. Loved your research. What I would encourage you, if you're going to be looking at the LGBTQ+, is to look at that decolonizing lens, including that. So there's the Blackness that comes in, and that's your lived experience, and this is touching that a lot on that. What I would encourage is that decolonizing lens and that the discrimination, I think you could pull so much on equality when it comes to that, because then it would tie on the intersectionalities that you are seeing and experiencing. You could bring that further. I think there's so many ways that your research could go, from the Black side, but also the discrimination side and LGBTQ+, and that intersectionality. There are so many ways to go, and I'll be happy to link you up with people who are known when it comes to intersectionality, and again, getting you the platform. And this is one of the things that, all of you with your researchers, it's getting a platform and knowing how to use that platform. So if you know how to podcast and do all that, get those skills ready and start doing little short bursts of what you think and share that, so we can help get the movement going. Yeah, do you want to finish? Yeah, so.
Should I?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, Lauren, so again, in your case, again, what you find is you have a very clear idea paper, right? And something that, but you also, I think the sense you got, you're quite clear way of moving in that, which is a great part. You could do that, but we did, where I would have said, when you discussed in terms of the needs and you talked about the neurodiversity, that they're all connected, but I couldn't see the jump. Now they are connected, we understand, but the way it was presented, I felt that it could be made more clear how is that connected to what you were describing, because then it leads to, okay, you're doing 3 to 4 different things, all of them connected, all of them important, but how they connected, that would have helped. So I'm not, I think where it can improve the presentation. If we focus on the presentation part, is more clarity about this is what the objective is, which you've done. Methodology, great. I think you're the strongest when it came to that, but it's what challenges, these are 2, 3 challenges you're facing. So that's I think the clarity would have helped there. And your presentation, again, seeing that was helpful because they had all 4. So in that sense, even when you didn't cover all of it, it helped us. So that was a good use of aid. Where I do feel in a presentation, depending on how much time you have, is also, and when you talk about lived experience, I know it's all to say, but it can also then be about how much of it is generalizable. Especially because you're not writing a PhD on your story only. And I do think that your weaving part, which you mentioned, and loom part, which came quite late, I think in the 3rd or 4th minute, if I had to do that, I said, you know what, start with that. That this is, I come from here, this is important, and this is what my PhD would do, it weaves story, which you said, but it came quite late. So I would say presentation-wise, that could have come sooner. But again, that's just a suggestion.
I'm not supposed to be talking about that.
Yeah.
Because I'm analyzing it, and it's something that I created
Yeah.
myself. So
Yeah.
I even mentioning it was
Yeah.
what I counted. I had to write it, publish it before even talking about it.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that that's part again. So we have covered broadly, and if we summarize, I mean, overall, but overall, any one reflection, advice, not on the 4 presented by engineering research.
Please. Yeah.
And do you want to give anything?
No, I think so far, just general, you get our contact details. Feel free to drop us any messages. I mean, I'm going to be here for a little while, so if you want to grab me on the side and let's have a chat, if you could, we'll get details from you for those people who want that support, and we'll be willing and ready to just support you as much as we can. But fantastic ideas, and well done, all of you.
And from my side, one thing I would say is, again, it's good idea, be there for each other. That's the advantage part, because I said generally queer spaces can be very lonely spaces. And this is something which NSP has done, is to bring us together, somehow keep connected, get more people involved, because straight white men in this context always network. That's the reality. And never feel apologetic about approaching another queer researcher. And you know what's here? Let me work better with you. Because I think straight white men always do it without any, not shame, but without any shame, without any apology. So maybe learn from that and just do what you have to and favor each other. That's what I would say. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. To be part of Researching the Rainbow this year, both now and with all my numerous amazing and annoying emails at all hours to get this all to happen today. Thank you so much for attending and for listening to all the researchers' presentations. A big thank you to all of you for being here again today. And congratulations again to this year's winner. I know there's winner. I still hate calling it a winner because you're all winners, but fortunately we do have to pick one to support, and I couldn't come up with a better word than winner. So well done, absolutely amazing. And keep an eye out for more Researching the Rainbow news. Hopefully it will be developing over the next year. We've got a few things planned, and look out for it again next year. Feel free, all the researchers, to apply again next year. I'm sure your research goes a long way in a year's time. But no, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully see you again next year, and enjoy the rest of National Student Pride Festival. Thank you so much.
Not connected. End of June, you forget the date, last 2 days of June, basically.
Okay.
And that would be basically a Saturday before the Pride in London. So that's how you remember. We would have a conference, Queering Academia at Westminster. I did that last year, and we will do that this year. So get in touch, everyone invited, will pay for trip, etc. So that's not a problem. And so Queering Academia, get more people involved. We had around 25 speakers last time, bringing together, but we want to do more. And I'm very clear that in academia, we need to build those networks and build links and be unapologetic. I kept saying, but so there'll be that end of June. Ask me or ask Long Singing. So now they have to help me in any case. Thank you.